So timing might not have been the best PSX because L1
Yeah.
was finishing their AMA. I just got off the phone with Zardar.
Oh, nice. How'd that go?
Good. It went really well. I didn't get a chance to ask him if he wanted to come on the podcast for you, but I'm going to have
Say
more
that one more
communication.
time. Yeah,
I didn't
yeah. I mean,
have the
we've all.
opportunity.
Hang on. Sorry. Can you hear me? Am I rugging? I think I'm rugging.
No, you're fine, man.
Okay. Yeah. No. It's just I'm actually multitasking right now. But yeah. I mean, we'll just. I mean, it's man. So that was, I guess, the timing. It's been such a busy week. I mean, we've been spitting out content. You've been promoting Luna Sapien, so congratulations to you, Duncan. I want to
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time for coming on, for taking a time out of your busy schedule to join us and do some catching up. So it's good to have you back in the space. Is he there?
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just having some chips for breakfast.
Breakfast of Champions.
There you. Yeah, and I do apologize for any background noise. I'm actually heading. Will be multitasking today because I'm heading to an 11 o'clock appointment. So I'm all over the place, and this week has been nuts. I know there's quite a few. So we'll just go ahead and press forward with our podcast. And hold on a second. Sorry, trying to focus and defensive driving and all that jazz. So again, for our audience that's trickling in, we'll give it about 5 more minutes, and then we'll go ahead and start.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on Lunkburn Army's schedule, I don't know how long Ivan's got him for. So
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, there's a majority of the community is over there.
How do you want to play this? Do you
Recorded,
Duncan?
so
Are
I
you?
say we go. It's recorded, and it's hard to get people together. So I say we
Yeah.
do it because, huh?
Do you want to press forward with our podcast, or do you want to? It's up to. I want to let this be.
If that one's like going over time, Lunkburn Army doesn't have a whole lot of time, so
yeah,
he can't stay there forever. So after the little spillover, people will come in, and if not, we got it recorded, so it's all good.
Okay. So do you want to? And I want to negotiate. We can do this. We can negotiate this if you want. If we can't, if you want, we can postpone this. This is up to you and Duncan. Because I'm okay with it as well.
I'll leave it up to Duncan what he wants to do.
No,
yeah.
Give me a sec. Give me a sec.
He was doing something when you answered it. What'd you say, Duncan?
Sorry, my dog decided to bark the moment this call started. So I can talk about some things. It depends on what people are interested in. If it is recorded, so
it's all on you though. It's all on you.
Yeah, I would rather just speak and then you guys can share the recording.
That sounds good to me. And we in Uninterrupted, the only time anybody comes up for questions is when we open it up for an AMA style, and that doesn't happen very often. So most of the time, it's just us three that are going to be up here. No one else is coming up. It's just going to be us.
Yep. And this is not an AMA. This is a podcast. So this is going to be fun, less formal, and just keep it casual.
I would be okay with opening up to questions after each topic, just like 2 or 3, and then go from there. So like I have the list of things I was going to talk about here, which is Ziggy, UST, Rap Luna, and I just went off the page. Wow, good job, me. There's a 4th one, but based on the interest I've seen in these topics, I can start with some of the less probably interesting ones and then go from there.
Sounds good to me. So which one do you want to start with?
I actually want to know. I want to know more about USTC, the repeg, and where Ziggy is at and how it's evolved between where you started and where it is now.
Right. I'll go into that later, just so that anybody who's from the other one can like hop in. So I want to start with Rap Luna, and then I can go into Ziggy, UST, and then Parody.
All right, let's kick it off. So, Wrapped Luna, right? And I mean, there's a lot of people that still have Wrapped Luna that is trapped on an exchange. So, what specifically about Wrapped Luna are we starting with? And just go ahead, go with the flow, and I'll be quiet and listen.
Sure. So, I haven't seen anybody. I mean, this is kind of a multifaceted question, so it'll be brief. But the whole thing about Rap Luna is that it's now publicly under litigation from the SEC because there's a definition of whether or not it's like what's the difference between a wrapped token and a synthetic token. So like, if you're using Ethereum and you wrap Ether, what is is wrapped Ether now a security sort of thing? And I get that a lot of people don't really care about this, but like there are some people who do, because they're confused about it. They don't understand it. And it's good to at least mention sometimes. I know like that one proposal that went up about indemnification or like legal protection for people who are in the US didn't want to be funded, in which case, more power to you, but there are plenty of people in the US who don't want to take on that risk. It's also just important because hang on. It's also just important because of like precedent, right? So first off, if you don't participate in that discussion, then you are just letting other people figure it out for you. If nobody discusses it, then it'll just be the SEC and the very few people who are actually participating in that litigation. So you can kind of think of it like a class action almost. And there's a lot of peculiarities with discussing it on Twitter, which I won't get into because that's, a huge rabbit hole. So that's pretty much all I wanted to mention on that.
So, I do have a question. Can you explain the difference between synthetic derivatives or synthetic tokens compared to wrapped?
Yeah, so I was discussing this with someone like a couple days ago, where it's like wrapped would be a 1-to-1 claim on the base asset, and then a synthetic would just be like something you made up and doesn't necessarily have to track the price. So like if we think about like Terra in general, so if you take Luna and then you wrap it and send it to Ethereum, that's what nominally would be a 1-to-1 with Luna, like regardless of the name or the like the underlying bytes. Now, with a synthetic, this is like minting UST on chain. That isn't necessarily backed by anything, at least in the Terra network, because the whole way that Terra worked was that whenever it was out of balance between Terra and Luna, it would just print more money. So UST would basically be a synthetic in that regard. So this has caused a lot of confusion where it's like, okay, if we minted money, then, at what value was it at? Do people get 1-to-1 on it, because if I bought Luna at like a fraction of a penny, wrapped it and sent it to Ethereum, should I get $1 or should I just get the value that I wrapped it at? So I've talked to a couple people about ways you can do this with the regular Luna network, which is just a vesting period, because Cosmos supports that. You can just do like a bridge smart contract and then vest it. But there's also just a bunch of like weird anomalies that happen on the tech side of this. Um, like, yeah, it's a big messy thing, but.
Gotcha. Thanks for that. PSX, you got a question?
Yeah, sorry about the background noise. Still trying to get this Chia Pet under wraps at the barbershop. But quick question regarding the SEC. I didn't realize they were paying attention to trying to distinguish the differences with Rap Luna. Like, are you able to weigh further on the details on that one? Because I wasn't aware that they had their finger on the pulse.
Right. So they had this thing where, you know, at least a couple months ago, there was this document that came out that was more or less like the SEC is suing Terraform Labs for, selling unregistered securities, which is like pretty much what they've done to every business. But and it was really weird because some of it didn't make any sense to me. Like, it was like, oh, UST is a security because it's like a debt instrument. That's what they hit Paxos for Binance US dollar. They were like, Binance US dollar is a debt instrument. And so, like, on the same note, UST is a debt instrument because it's, you are buying something that's 1-to-1 and it's digital. And it was very confusing. So, with respect to UST in general, you're more or less thinking about, like, if they minted money on chain, is that a debt instrument or a security? But people were just like converting their fiats into digital versions of it, which we do all the time in modern society anyways. Like, if I put my money in the bank and I go spend it on my debit card, when I'm transferring money on debit through my debit card, there's no point where I need to touch cash. You're just trading a digital version of it. And so for Rap Luna and that kind of stuff, they were trying to hit it for being unregistered securities. So like selling wrapped mirror, like the mirror assets. So because Wrapped Luna is under the mirror contract. So that would be like, oh, so Mirror is minting Mirror Tesla or Mirror Bitcoin. Do they have is that backed by anything? Like, are they just minting like stocks from these companies, or are they trading a derivative? That's the question. Like, are they trading a derivative of the equity where you're just trading price action, or are you trading an actual equity in the company where you have like shareholder rights, for example?
Yeah, it's the definitions aren't exactly as defined as they need to be. That's for sure. Duncan, I forgot to tell you when I was talking to Zardar, towards the end I mentioned that I had to get going because I had a podcast with you, and he wanted to say hi to you and hope everything's going well with you. So you guys probably don't get to talk like you used to. So he did say that, and he said hi to PSA.
He still loves you. Oh, right on, dude. It's good to know that he's still got a lot of love for Duncan.
And PSX is getting 1 year older in a couple days, so wish him a happy birthday.
Oh, Jesus, I didn't tell me. How did you know? You know what? Don't answer that question. Don't answer that question.
No,
yeah, apparently. It's like this entire chain's a goddamn psyops. I swear to God. Question for Duncan, and then again for those who are trickling in, I do apologize. I am at my barbershop getting my Chia Pet under control. She's getting that nice little buzz cut, to tighten everything back up. But in regards to the what you were talking about, where the SEC was it just to kind of briefly put it, like where they're trying to figure if this or if that. It seems like there's too many um, oh man, what's the word I'm looking for? I lost my train of thought. Damn it, I know I was
Variables.
going.
Too many variables.
Very, thank you. Variables, right? But in regards to like what is minting a token or minting a coin or whatever on the chain, why not go back to what they consider like printing money, like when the feds turn the printing machine, like how do they consider that, and why can't they just use that definition and apply it here?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Sorry. Okay, so before you were talking about, and hopefully you can correct me if I heard you incorrectly, but you mentioned about where the SEC was trying to figure out like how to categorize minting tokens or or any kind of currency on the chain. Why not why not take the definition of what they consider printing money and just apply that concept onto what minting tokens onto the chain?
He's talking like the Fed, and like it's almost like they have different rules. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like if we print money on the chain, but because we're not the Fed, they're going to give us a different kind of category.
So, first off, as far as I'm concerned, the Fed and U.S. government didn't really have any control over what was being minted on Terra. So, I mean, think about it like this. Let's say I'm an American company. I develop a technology that says, all right, I'm going to sell something. I'm going to sell like the Chinese renminbi. All you have to do is give me that currency, and then I'll give you a digital version of it. And there's no guarantee that it will hold the same value, but you have a digital version of it. So there's that part. And then there's the part where it's like, if it doesn't hold the peg, so to speak, like, is it redeemable one for one? Then that's a problem. So the problem with Terra's, trying to remember the module. One of the modules, I'm pretty sure it's the market. The way it works is that you can swap the like US dollar for the Chinese renminbi. Now, you can also swap it to either one of those to Luna, which is purportedly the backing currency. Luna is pegged to a accounting tool called an XDR. It's kind of like a currency, but it's not a currency. It's just like a unit of account for the International Monetary Fund. So there's really nothing backing it besides faith and credit. Now, if I mint money and say, well, nothing's really backing it except your belief in it, and yeah, it just gets like super messy, man. Like, uh, you know, there's just a lot to unpack here. Um, and I'm trying to
Can you
like
do it?
keep it
Can you do
streamlined
it in
here.
30 seconds? Yeah, I know. It's like I
Yeah,
was
I'm
like,
about to
well,
like rant off, so I just want to keep
yeah.
it streamlined.
Um, are we able to go into a bit about like because I want to I'm still curious about where how the original concept of Ziggy has evolved, like where from where it started and where it is to today.
So this is like, so which part? Because I um I kind of wrote Ziggy the proposal as a very broad form of approaching the UST repeg, and then there's some things that are really important to note about this concept of UST repeg. that people that I've talked to don't seem to fully understand, and it's kind of frustrating. So I wrote this, and the papers are still on Onyx Node Stones, but the whole thing about UST repeg, from where we can see it, is that it's impossible to do unless you make so much money every single year that you can justify Luna Foundation Guard selling their holdings. You basically have to just buy out everything on a centralized exchange, like their entire supply. Then you have to not sell it, and then you have to make more money than than Luna Foundation Guard is holding. So they hold like 28.5% of the supply, or like 28%. So like the maximum peg you can reach with before Luna Foundation Guard is like 72 cents. And then if you count all of the other holders like whales and centralized exchanges, hot wallets, the amount of on-chain supply we have for UST is like 10% of the total supply, which is 900, it's like 9.8 million. So if you think about it, like, okay, let's say every dollar we have on chain is worth $1, like every UST unit, then you will never go above 9 or 10 cents. The only way to counteract this without buying it out is just to make literally so much money that the value of other people's dead dollars are like they can justify selling it at $1 or more. So I wrote this in the Ziggy sidechain proposal, which people got mad about, which was like, okay, here's a market that's ripe for being onboarded, the creative IP market. The total number of dollars that they take in annually is about 600 billion. If you capture 2.5% of that annually, then you make $13 billion. And what this does is that $10 billion is going to push the value of our 10% holdings to $1. It'll push everyone else's holdings towards $1. And then you have to offset the Oracle emission rate, which is 30 to 55%. It's really high. So basically, you have to make $10 billion. You have to have that be held by people. And then you have to make another $3 billion per year to offset the amount of money going out in the Oracle pool. When I brought this up, it was like, okay, you cannot do this just on chain because we only have 10% of the supply. You have to basically start a business and then reroute all of the money to that business, to the Luna Classic chain. You're buying out all of the debt. You're burning all of the Luna Classic down. You're pushing the value of UST up. And people didn't like this for I have no idea what reason. Like, I don't know. There's just multiple reasons.
I mean, it is what it is, right? So it sounds like it's quite a mountain to climb. Is it possible in your eyes? I mean, obviously it is. You took the time to look into it, but it's a very daunting task. What is the outlook on it, in your opinion?
It's completely possible. It's just like, so my biggest bugaboo with working with the Luna Classic network is that they don't want to subsidize anything that makes money. It's just like, we're going to pay the bare minimum for maintenance and then try and get as much out of the staking yield as possible. And it's really difficult to work against that. Like, we want high taxes. We want what effectively amounts to welfare checks.
It's very altruistic.
We want we don't want to subsidize developers. We're just going to rotate contractors. That's not a sustainable model for government, for business, or anything. It's just fucking frustrating, you know. But it's completely possible. Like, if you think about a $600 billion market, 2.5% of that per year. Like, think about all of the companies that make game currencies. They rake in a ton of money. A lot of them are already hooked up to Chinese companies like Tencent. Like, I've obviously thought about this. That's why it's frustrating.
Definitely understand that. PSX, you got another question, yeah?
Yeah, well, I was gonna make a comment about just to take his frustration and extend it further because I was gonna let him know. I was like, well, I I did talk to ASOBs to put up another proposal to burn the entire community pool, so that way we've got nothing to subsidize with, just to make him feel better.
Oh my gosh. Jokes. We
What?
got jokes. But, you know, there's been some talk recently about having it's a decentralized blockchain. We all know this. But it would definitely benefit if there was a centralized vision moving forward. And I think with something that's everyone can at least jump on board with, could actually bring people together and work. There's conversations about, people want to raise the taxes, and there has to be a happy medium somewhere. And I think Lunkburn Army did mention it last podcast. You got to be able to get to a point where we're reaching out to all these different factions that are making all the noise and figured out, can we do this? And just let them know, like, that can't be done. This is why. And that's just the way it is. But we have to get to a point where we have a vision for Luna Classic so that everybody that wants the chart to go green, it can actually go green after we implement some business on the blockchain. It just makes sense to be able to do that. So subsidizing L2, or, we're only subsidizing L1 right now, but getting to the point where we're subsidizing L2 development. And I'm not talking about little projects here and there. I'm talking about projects that actually bring a massive utility to the chain, right? That's going to make us more competitive. So go ahead, PSX.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that because I know like that was one of the talking points that DJ Trev was pushing for, and I know you and I have been keeping an eye out for additional maybe protocols to start that conversations. I mean, one we said earlier this week we had a conversation with the CTO from Whitewell, so they're in direct communications with LBA. And kind of circling back to our initial communications with you, Duncan. Who was that? What was it? That 4X company that's based here in Dallas? Do you still have their contacts? Because I was digging them up trying to locate them.
Yeah, it's 4X early warning on Twitter.
4X. Okay, because you told me that, or at least, and correct me if I'm wrong. Like they are building some a DApp of some sort that they wanted to bring to Luna Classic. Is that accurate, or am I like really off? Like, what was their initial intent? Do you recall?
Yeah, so they were giving me feedback on this the process that I was taking for quote unquote the UST repeg, which I do have to kind of mention here that as a side note, beyond just making 10 times the amount of money consistently on chain, if you just visualize the value of USTC as a coin, then it's at fair value. I tell people, it's like, well, if I give you 100 pennies and you give me $1, do you lose out on anything? It's like, we can just do this with Luna. They can just restart their like UST 2.0. You can keep coins. They can have dollars. There's no, you know, there's nothing conflicting about that. Now, as far as the Forex goes, he was talking about, he's looking for visibility on his work, but they were saying like they wanted to bring Forex, dApps on here, um, which I don't know. I haven't really kept up. It's been a very, very like running on fumes since January. So,
I'll make a note of it. I'll probably like maybe consider reaching out to them, seeing where they're at, as far as what their position is with Luna Classic, and then if they're still in progress of building that specific dApp that you had first brought up to my attention earlier, and then Jerry, maybe bring both Forex and Duncan in for another episode to have that conversation.
Yeah, if he wants to, if Duncan wants to be a part of that, that's
absolutely. That would be. I mean, it's just a cool thing that just kind of crossed my mind here, but just thinking out loud. Anyway, sorry, I rambled off track. But going back to let's see, where were we? The repeg, Rap Luna. What else?
I think are you still on the repeg, Duncan, or is that, or do you have more to cover? I get like you could probably talk about that for hours, I'm sure.
Well, okay, so with the repeg, first off, again, if you think about it like a coin and not like a dollar, it's at fair value. Like there's pennies, there's I don't even know what they're called, but in Europe they have like double cents. They have nickels, we have quarters, we have half dollars, and then we have dollars. If you just convert this to a dollar, there's theoretically no loss of value in that exchange. Hey, can I trade 100 pennies for $1? Sure. Here you go. Like, boom. The whole problem is fixed. All it does is reduce the supply of USTC to the amount of money in there, which is like $250 million. So you have $250 million of coins, and then the rest of that money is, or the supply is crunched into a dollar. It is like, you could take $250 million and create 250 million UST and 0 USTC, or based on the value, it's like what, 2 cents. So you would have like 500 million or something like that UST and 0 coins. But the point is that dollars and coins, it doesn't matter. Like when you realize that there's no need to repeg, then like things get a lot easier. Now, the important thing about the repeg is designing mechanisms where if it does happen again, we have the means to rebound from it faster and more efficiently. So over the year, we had like the algorithmic tranche reserves, we had the community decks, we had divergence tax, we had I don't know, I put out like 15 different things like demurrage and quant light band, whatever. So all of these things contribute to the ability for peg maintenance to happen. And then, but USTC doesn't need that because it's just, if you just think about it like coins, there's no need to repeg. We're actually above fair value. Like you can split the value of USTC into pennies. And if we can maintain a penny level of value, then we're in a pretty good spot. I mean, there's not as much demand, but
going based on what you just said, I'd say the bigger challenge is to shift the perception, the common idea that USTC pegging that pairing that with Luna Classic and then getting it back to $1. trying to get the community because it's a big ass community, trying to get them to shift that mindset away from the dog. I mean, that's a hell of a challenge right there. Just that in alone itself. I,
Well, at this
I'm
point, any interaction that creates arbitrage opportunities is going to create more traffic on the chain. So what
right.
Duncan's saying is it would be beneficial even if it wasn't repegged all the way up to where everyone's expectations are.
Yeah. Do you see any, Duncan? Do you see any kind of overlap, continued overlap, collaboration with Redline Drift? I know you guys had worked previously or loosely worked with each other prior.
My whole thing about this, and especially with Ziggy, was basically anybody can contribute to Ziggy. All you have to do is say, I want money to contribute to Ziggy, because Ziggy is just an umbrella term for like, I want to repeg. I don't think people read it correctly, which is, it's fine. But, with regards to what you said, Jerry, it took me 6 months of like constant talking to people to like get anybody to care about USTC in general. Like when I first got here in late August of 2022, it was just like everyone wanted to just burn everything to the ground. And I'm like, "Oh my god. Like do you guys bought into it. You want the money, but you are denying all of the things that need to make you money, because arbitrage doesn't make money. It is like a very zero sum thing. It is a result of, latency and mispricing in the market. So like if China is pricing USTC at 2 cents and then we're pricing it at 2.5 cents, then people can just buy and sell. Like they buy in China and then they sell in the US and they earn half a cent of profit every single time that happens. And in that case, China is winning, US is losing money every single time that happens. The only reasonable thing is to, for economics 101, is just to contribute to GDP, right? Work. So since I've been in this community, we'll say, I have tried to get people to be like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get your assets listed on Osmosis. We're going to get it listed on Kajira. We're going to have an automated market maker that generates profits on Kajira called Black Whale Make Money. And nobody gave a shit. It was like, where do you think the money comes from? Because it's not from arbitrage. Like you can even send this money to other markets, but you still need to have a counterparty who's taking like the other side of the trade, who's holding the carrying costs, all this stuff. And Ziggy is, I posted a paper that was like, here's something that should have been integrated ages ago called demurrage, because if you do your homework, there's an economist who's been talking about this for like 20 years, and he worked with Bancor, which not ironically, coincidentally, had the same problem of hyperinflation for impermanent loss protection. So you have Bancor, and then you have, I have this, like, here are the things I'm contributing to the algorithm, and here's how I want to bring in, I don't know, fucking $600 billion to the network, which would solve all your fucking problems. And people didn't, I didn't really get a lot of great feedback on this. People were like, oh my God, you're forking. I don't even think they understand what that means. They just take it at face value that it's a bad thing because it happened last year, when in reality, Bitcoin has forked a bunch of times. Ethereum has forked a bunch of times. Like, it is, I don't know, it grinds on my brain sometimes. So it's the solution to this is very simple. Okay. The solution is to make Luna mainnet. Then Luna Classic is the Classic network. That's it. And then you let people who are on Wrap Luna unwrap to Luna. You let people who want to stay on the Classic network, they stay on the Classic network. They can just access it from the same wallet. There's no problems here. We can still just do whatever we've been doing. I perpetually grifting people through influenzas, and I don't. It's just, I don't know. It's so simple, but I don't get why it hasn't been done.
Well, I have a theory on that because I believe that individuals, I think, are very intelligent. They go and read a proposal or they go read on their own. They can determine some things using their own intelligence. However, there is a contingent of any group that is just going to listen to the loudest voices. And then you start delving into what's called groupthink. Now, the average intelligence is 100 IQ, right? But when you get into a group and you have a bunch of people that make up the average, there's people maybe a little below and people that are above and blah blah blah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Their IQ as a group, though, can go down in those situations because of groupthink. And it's just the mind does get complacent, it gets lazy, and it starts to hear one conversation over the other, and then that's the direction it goes to. So part of the reason of having this podcast is so that people can hear from people that they don't normally hear from, and that's why we have you on here, Duncan. So I want to thank you for coming on and letting us, in on some of what you're thinking about. Do you have anything more to add on Ziggy?
Well, okay, so Ziggy, I changed it to exchange rate multiprocessor. So basically, if you think of Terra like a big computer, and it's just a central processing unit that processes money, right? If you just strip down Luna Classic to 3 modules, which is Treasury, Oracle, and Market, you can have like lightning fast DeFi banking. And I've done a lot of work, at least on the market side. Treasury is disabled since Seigniorage is not live, and Oracle's probably can be handled by Chainlink. I don't know what's happening with Band Protocol. But with regards to anybody can just contribute to it. But I put this out in February, and one person has put it out. Like, oh, divergence tax. It's like basically as it drifts out of a peg range, then you charge more, which kind of makes sense. I don't think it fully makes sense in the context of all of the Forex live on the network, because what makes the US dollar like hard code a dollar? Why does it have to be a dollar? There's a lot of currencies that are not at the value of 1, but that's because we have one chosen dollar or currency that's 1. As far as like influencers go, at this rate, I'm just about ready to fire all of them, because it is like there's so much, like it's so easy to just ask me for like, hey, how does this work? I spent months trying to explain to them why we're even in this situation in the first place. I spent months trying to warn people about Terraport. And guess what? It's just like, oh my gosh, it happened. It's like, yeah, well, no shit. If you listened, then it would have been a lot easier. to not do that. But like I don't know. It's if you really want this to look centralized, to like be centralized, I would legitimately fire like all of these influencers. I'd hire like a very core set of people to actually take the lead on this chain who are competent and understand how even the baseline mechanism works. Then you pay them like the salaries. You hire junior devs to make sure that like we can still maintain it without rotating it out. Like imagine if you changed your teacher every month. That's what this is like. The kids will lose interest. So yeah, I'm on the point where it's like I'm willing to contribute, but I gotta take time away, man. Like until you guys get the shit together, because like it's not even worth my time anymore if people won't even like see the problems that exist. And I am not willing to spend another 6 months to like waste my time with people who won't listen.
Who do you think, um, influencers aside, um, do you, let's see, any other groups or teams that tend to block your voice from 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 providing more clarity to what you're trying to achieve for the community?
Uh Twitter.
Okay. I mean,
Twitter and
isn't that
But
Discord.
everybody though?
I've made this clear over the months and there's been no resolution. Like basically I can't even pull up like the shadow bans have gotten so thick that I can't even pull up stuff from like 3 days ago on my advanced search. They just don't even show up. So
Jesus.
yeah, so I'm basically like sitting in the dark. I'm completely fucked. Um, I changed my name because I found out that my whole home network was compromised, and I didn't want people to like if someone had access to my account and they started posting under my real name, I wouldn't want them to think that it was me per se. So
Mm.
um, that was just like me trying to protect other people from like just consequences that would have been out of my control. So I just changed it to something that is like pseudonymous and um I did kind of freak out because I wasn't sure who like what was happening or who did it or whether they were even malicious at all.
Right.
But it's just like it's scary, man. You basically are on your computer and then you realize that people can might have been watching you through your Google Home for like 10 months, and it's like I don't even feel like working because it's just like, okay, well, Big Brother's watching me and every one of my moves. They're front running all of my ideas whenever I type because I'm keylogged. It's fucked up. I hate it.
Yeah. When was the last time you spoke with Zardar?
uh Probably a couple months ago.
Oh, okay. It's like I would have liked to, because I remember you presenting an idea about stress testing Luna Classic, and I thought it was. I mean, yeah, I knew the contentiousness of the idea of like let's purposely crash the idea or crash the entire chain. And I mean, I'll be frank, I was very cowboyish about it. I still am, honestly, And do you remember what I said? I said, like, how about we talk to Binance and say, hey, can you crash, like, just crash the entire thing? Let's see where we're at. Do you remember that conversation we had? I think it was
Yeah,
like a
it
few.
needs at this rate, if people aren't willing to fire the influencers, it needs to
Uh-huh.
happen. Like and but the thing is that they'll freak out and then they'll realize that everything was just hosted by all nodes anyways, or just
Right.
like a specific group of validators who actually know how to validate they are running the correct oracle rates. You know, I mean, I have had a lot of conversation about correct oracle rates, but like just fucking nuke it. Like nuke this shit to the ground. if it lives, well done to our favorite cockroach in the industry. That's my executive decision, signed off. Huge. Just fucking send it.
Put it in the proposal. No,
Fuck
joking.
that, dude. I am tired. It's just like so tired because it's like, imagine you are running a business and all of your customers decide, like, you cannot even procure products wholesale without the majority of your customers giving consensus about it. That's retarded. It's just stupid. Like, hey, I want to bring in a new product to the store. Well, I didn't vote for it. I don't care. I'm just going to bring the product into the store. If you buy it, cool. If you don't, you didn't lose any money. You're getting a free check to shop at my store.
Where CZ Binance even said it himself. God, man, we're already running up on 10 minutes left. I remember CZ Binance even discussed, like, we have a conceptually, and I'll quote him verbatimly, a conceptually flawed governance. Like, I remember, like, even when the idea of a 1.2 tax more in China be voted on to off-chain sexes, there's the fun. I mean, just that alone, with a community this size, thinking that just because we voted on something that it would affect off-chain businesses, really had me worried on that many people's conceptions of perceptions of how the governance intended to work. And correct me if I'm wrong, anything not executionable through a code, like a hard code to be upgraded through on chain, is just it's nothing more than either a text proposal or a signal proposal that is just saying, like, hey, heads up. Is that a good way of looking at it? For
Yes,
any of
like,
our, yeah.
what I was telling people, especially with the Terraport exploit, was like, people are just thinking of this as, like, I don't know, like flipping light switches instead of foreign policy. Like, you do realize that there's 21 other currencies we support. There's 190 countries in the IMF. Like, and you're saying, okay, like, imagine if you had a trade thing going on with Europe or Asia, and like with the injective IBC, this was already planned. Okay, we're going to open up a trade route between the US and Asia. Oh my gosh, the things that people have told us were going to be a problem 3 months ago have now become a problem. Let's close our trade route to Asia, even though our trade route to Europe already exists. It is just like, how does that even make any sense from a standpoint of foreign policy? Like, if you really want to take this chain seriously, you have to think of it like a global government tool. And it's just like, we've got 20-year-olds who don't even understand how it works running it, and it's starting to really piss me off. And because it's just so simple to just handle, you know. And with regards to the governance itself, I literally wrote an article 1 month after the crash last year. It was like a post-mortem, and in that article I wrote how you could prevent a governance attack happening from a hyperinflationary event. And then, go figure, back in February, I actually was trying to increase my voting power and realized, there's some, like, cyclical rotation of voting power. And then I was like, this is exactly what I wrote about last year. How ironic, right? It's because in the end, it's, if you have the most money, but you have no idea how to run it, why are you running it? You are just going to lose everybody else money. That's why, like, the whole proof of work thing actually makes sense. Because it's like, put in the work, let's see it. The computer's doing a lot of the work. That's why you're getting the money. But yeah, if it were up to me, I'd just, there's a
Drop a
lot
nuke.
of, huh?
drop a nuke. You want to drop the nuke.
Yeah, just like throw on the market swap module and then just announce to people that, hey, we're going to turn it on. And then we're going to run it until this block height or these conditionals. So like if it inflates to like 15 trillion, 30 trillion, then anything beyond that, we're just going to roll back, which is why I was asking, like, do you guys know what get, rebase, and merge is? Because that's what it is. You know, it's like we're going to fork, put the good parts of the fork on the chain. Wow. That is literally how the coding works. You know, it's just over time, these governance stuff, they're accessible right now, but as financial education increases, as computer science knowledge increases, so too will the threshold for governing these networks. And that makes a difference because I don't want to have to do this shit again.
All right, we're running up on the 4 minutes. Jerry, Duncan, let's see if we want to kind of open up the space up for maybe 3 or 4 people to ask questions. If since Duncan is open to that idea, Jerry, what about?
Yeah, I wanted to know is if you have a quick 1-minute opinion on parity, because you were going to talk about that, but if you can scrunch it up and then we'll start. If anyone has questions, start requesting right now.
It should have been done months ago, but the easiest way to think about parity is like just make Luna the main net, make Classic the classic net, accessible from the same wallet. There's no functional difference. Open up an IBC channel between Classic and mainnet, and you're done. This is like a very simple thing, and I have no idea why it took 12 months. So, but I can't speak too much on that. That's the 1 minute.
Oh, I could. Anyways, let's go ahead and open up those, and we can have that private conversation. I can go on a rant with you on that one, Duncan, if you like. We'll do some venting together, okay? Gotcha. All right. Jerry, do you want to go ahead and open up? Do we have anybody want to request up to ask Duncan any questions?
No, I think we have the audience trained to not ask questions, to be honest. So we can talk about whatever we want.
Good. I do have one last question before we end up, and this question is for Jerry, actually. And try not to feel awkward, but it's going to get a little awkward. Do you feel dirty yet?
What do you mean?
Yeah, you got 2 Xterra rebels in your space. I mean, you just gotta let that sink for a little bit.
Dirty terror.
Yeah, you know. I was having a deja vu moment because, like, I remember Duncan and I had a 3-way conversation with Demon prior before we were setting up a meeting with the Juno folks. Dirty? Well, he was definitely looking to. He was definitely looking to, like, he gave us a clue that he was going to hit the showers right after he hung up the phone with us, and
okay. Well, yeah. the point of the podcast, because you're helping me with it. So the point of the podcast is to be able to get people to talk without being interrupted, so that people can make up their minds and think as individuals instead of the group think that has been occurring.
It's one of the biggest problems that we kept running into, especially within a lot of spaces. People getting blocked, people getting muted, people getting, not muted, but kicked from the space. And for anybody in here, I have and this is for my account only, like, even irregardless whether I disagree with somebody or not, I don't block them. Like, I want them exposed to different ideas. So any spaces that I jump into, if you see me in a space, jump in there with me, see what's going on. Kind of I'm always encouraging everyone to reach across the aisle and have that open conversations. Regardless how you may feel about that individual. I mean, there might be some exceptions. We won't go there, but but that's basically what I have to wrap it up with. And I guess I have to apologize to Trade Rocco and Ivan, because I told them I was going to be in their spaces. I didn't realize there was a conflict when I moved it around uh, to better fit the time zones and whatnot. But fortunately, it's their AMA is being recorded, so we can go back in there and revisit that at a future time. Jerry, did you want to add anything before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I missed that space too. I wanted to be there, but unfortunately, my first consultation with Tobias happened at that exact time. So,
Shit.
more important to talk to Tobias than be in a space. So, at least for what I'm trying to do. So I chose to talk to Tobias.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right. I mean, you know what? We can have Ivan and Trade Rocco in our podcast and just do a little round table and say, hey, please don't hate us. We still support you. We still love you guys. And you know, and continue to push for these open dialogues without anybody interrupting each other. Duncan, I wanted to thank you for your thank you for coming out, taking your time out of your busy day and speaking with us. And hopefully we'll have more of these conversations for you, depending on your progress.
Yeah, of course. You know, I don't mind talking about it every now and then, but as of lately, I'm just moving away from all that stuff. I'll come back if I get new ideas, or you know, the general constituency gets their shit together. Otherwise, you can follow me for new stuff. I've been talking to people about setting up a DAO on Enterprise. There's a couple other really like nascent projects I've been working on as well, which are super cool in my opinion. A lot bigger than Terra Classic. And yeah, thanks for having me on and setting up this uninterrupted podcast.
Duncan, it's been a pleasure hearing your thoughts again. And thanks again for coming on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody in the listeners that came to listen to the podcast, and anybody that is going to be listening to the recording. It's really good to hear all the perspectives you can, so that you can have a better understanding what everything is about. And some of the people we have on here may or may not be strictly Luna Classic, such as White Whale. However, they do have a history with Luna Classic. So that was the one that kind of was a little bit different. But we hope to have a more diverse guest list. And I would say Duncan was fairly on the diverse side, because he has kind of stepped away a little bit, but very involved in the past. So Duncan, again, thank you for coming on.
You sure it wasn't because I was brown? That's why it's diverse.
Yellow, 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 yellow.
I'm confused.
Yellow, yellow,
yellow. Well, thanks for having me on,
yellow.
guys. I am gonna go.
Am I surrounded by
and enjoy
Asian
the rest of my day not talking about this stuff?
Yellow, like lunk. All right. And for everybody else, thank you again. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. And we're out.